Hey, Changemaker! Welcome to Learning for Good, the only podcast that teaches nonprofit leaders how to leverage training to drive performance, improve capacity, and fuel their mission impact. Do you ever feel like your nonprofit is growing, but your people just aren't keeping up? Or like you're fixing the same problems over and over? Do you wonder how to build confident, capable staff who know how to lead, not just execute? If we haven't met yet, I'm Heather, and I know how hard it can feel to get people to do what's expected of them. Trust me, I have 3 kids. I've tried telling people what to do and how. I've tried the traditional training approaches, and I realized that just doesn't work. And that's when I started researching what does work. Now, I help mission-driven leaders use learning to drive performance, build capacity, and make change that lasts. And I'm sharing it all on this podcast. So block your calendar, turn off your Teams or Slack chat, and let's dive in. It's Learning for Good. I am not a runner. I run a couple of 5Ks a year. And my only goal for those 5Ks to finish. But I've interviewed several runners on the podcast and inside the nonprofit L&D Collective, and I have had friends who are runners. And my oldest daughter is a runner. She runs cross country and track and field. And somehow last year I got nominated as the track and field coach. So I'm around running a good bit. And here is what I know, especially with coaching runners. My runners can show up, have fun, and run. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if that's all we do, they won't see much improvement. There's not a clear way to get better. There's not a path to state or whatever meet they dream of competing at. To see those kinds of improvements, to have a clear path to state, we have to have a plan. And that plan includes strength and conditioning to improve their overall athleticism. It includes drills and practice to improve specific skills. And it includes a bit of strategy related to who competes in what events and how relay teams are structured and things like that. To me, this is a clear picture of how career paths work. We can just show up and have fun, and we might get better at our job. We might even get promoted. But when an organization has clear career paths, we know exactly what we need to do, how we need to learn and grow, what we need to experience in, and how that all ties in with a larger people strategy. But for some reason, this feels way more complex when we talk about career paths. And it's something I talk with senior HR and talent development leaders about often. So when I met Melanie Gonzalez and heard all the work that she has done around career pathing at her nonprofit, I knew I had to have her on the podcast. I'm excited to bring that conversation to you today. Let's dive in. It's Learning for Good. Melanie is the Chief People Officer at BSRI, a nonprofit organization that provides research and evaluation services in Miami, Florida. She has been with BSRI since 2020 and serves on their executive leadership team. She was born and raised in Miami, Florida, and has Cuban immigrant roots. She completed her undergraduate studies at Miami-Dade College and Florida International University while simultaneously starting her professional career in the legal field. She is a notary for the state of Florida, a certified English and Spanish translator, and serves as a member of several groups, including the National Executive Alliance, People Geeks, the National HR Advisory Group, and Latinas in Miami for Good. Melanie's passion has always been to help people, regardless of sector, industry, or title, which is how she got into and fell in love with HR and people work. As the CPO of BSRI, she wears many hats. She oversees all aspects of HR, organizational communications, and company culture. Melanie leads the planning and execution of their events and leads strategic planning initiatives across the organization. Alongside the CEO, she oversees the nonprofit's finances and budgeting, and when not expanding BSRI's collaborative and people-centered culture, You can find her speaking at business and HR leadership conferences and podcasts where she addresses hot HR topics. Melanie, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Heather. I'm so excited to be here.
You are a busy bee. We had a couple of conversations back and forth before recording this podcast episode, and all the things that you have your hands in are working towards just so strategic, so thoughtful. And I know we're going to learn so much from you today.
I'm excited to share it.
So, before we jump in, I always like to hear a little bit about your career journey in your own words. So, how did you get here? How did you fall in love with HR and people? What does that look like? You said you started in legal, so there's some correlation, I guess. But how did you get here?
I know. I love talking about this because people are like, I remember you wanting to go to law school. How did you end up here? I actually started working in immigration and criminal defense as a Florida certified paralegal, Florida bar. That experience really grounded me in advocacy, helping people navigate complex systems and complex situations during some of the most vulnerable moments in their lives. If you know anything about immigration, especially in the current climate, it is very, very, very hectic and it's not a crazy interesting or looking forward event to be a part of. You're usually in it because extreme circumstances and you're looking for a better path. So it's definitely a rewarding job and a very rewarding experience to be a part of, but it is a rocky road to get there. So over time, I realized what I was most drawn to wasn't necessarily the legal work itself, although I was very passionate about it, but the human side of it, which was supporting people, building trust, helping them grow, and helping them navigate these difficult situations. And that's kind of what led me into HR and operations. And I guess the darker or the more honest side of that is that I went through a lot of different experiences in the legal world because I was working full time while going to school full time. And that honestly it takes a lot out of you, especially in that type of field. So it got to the point when I finished my undergrad and I was like, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to go to law school? Is this where I'm best suited to go next? And although I do think that I would have made an amazing attorney and I would have really loved the field, I really wanted to switch gears and see where I would go next just because I felt very emotionally drained and exhausted from that role. That's not to say that HR doesn't emotionally exhaust you in some ways, but I did feel like that was the path that I was meant to go on. And as I started looking for work and just changing my overall path in my career, this opportunity presented itself to start working with the nonprofit BSRI. Now, I will say I wasn't coming into the role very green. I was coming into the role with some HR and people experience from the law firms because a lot of the law firms that I worked at in my early career were startups. So I was helping build the infrastructure, the HR side of things, and training the paralegals as they came on to work with me. So I did have a lot of experience there and managed a lot of that in the firms. So I was coming in with that experience, also at a nonprofit that was already pretty well established in the industry, but infrastructure wise had some building to do. So I came in to help on that. I, funny enough, came in as the office manager. It wasn't even an HR role. And then I slowly, built up the what the HR system and the people operations are now. I've had the opportunity to build the function from a holistic lens. So HR, culture, communications, and all of that, including learning and development. And then growing into my role, I also joined the executive leadership team where I can make a little bit more of an impact because I had more decision making power and had a seat at the table to really change what the organization's views or strategies were. It allowed me to connect the people strategy directly to how we think about like the organizational growth and how we can make impact for our team. Because our role and our organization is so focused on the external impact, I wanted to focus on the internal component.
It's so interesting to hear. There was a moment in time where you consciously were like, I'm not sure if this is what I want. And we're able to make that transition. And then to your point, starting as office manager and then working your way through the organization, proving your value, proving what you can bring to the organization and what this type of role can bring to the organization. Before we get into questions though, we're going to talk about a lot of the career mapping, career pathing work in the context of your organization. So tell us a little bit about BSRI, mission, vision, size, maybe the things that you think will be most relevant to our conversation.
Yes, happy to. This is actually a great opportunity to practice our pitch. This was something we worked on heavily on our branding and marketing side a couple years back. So, we're a research and evaluation nonprofit focused on helping organizations make informed decisions through data driven insights. So, we do a little bit of everything on the grant and program evaluation and data side. We partner with community organizations, funders, government, universities, all of the above to strengthen their strategy programs and overall impact in communities. At our core, we translate data into action. So, we do also do data work and strategic planning, and really we're kind of a catch-all organization to some of the partners that we work with, which is a good thing. We are relatively small, a high-performing team. We're currently team of 10, which means everyone kind of plays a critical role in both our internal operations and how we impact externally. And we're also a minority women-led organization. We're very intentional about building a workplace that reflects our values and our core, collaboration, integrity, and community. And something that's really shaping how we're showing up right now is because we are coincidentally going through a wind down of operations over the next 15 months. We're approaching the process with the same care, transparency, and commitment to our partners that we've handled our entire work process through the years. So while our mission has always been focused on strengthening the social sector, we're also trying to do that and making long lasting impacts in the communities that we've built as we are now winding down.
Yeah, just the intentionality with which you're approaching this has been so clear to me. And everything that you've done, right, that we've talked about has come with that intentionality. I know as chief people officer, you created a number of different talent initiatives, different things at BSRI. And one in particular that stood out to me was the career pathing work that you did. So, what prompted you to work on career paths at BSRI?
So this was a very exciting opportunity for me and honestly a very rewarding one. It was a lengthy one at that, but it was very, very good. The big driver honestly was clarity here or really lack thereof. So many organizations, as I'm sure the nonprofits who are listening will relate and know, growth can feel ambiguous. People don't always know what's next for them or how exactly the organization is going to grow in what way. So as we were growing, because when I first came on, we were a team of I think 4, and we more than doubled in size in the years that I've been here. We were trying to be clear of obviously wanting to retain the great people that we had and how we can support their development in a meaningful way. We needed to define what growth looked like for them, what growth looked like for us, and both in their roles across organization and compensation. Two of the things that I talked about at the same time was the career pathing and the compensation philosophy as an organization. Because as we all know, especially in the nonprofit space, those things go hand in hand, and you have to figure out on a budget how you can continue to pay your people according to the market and competitively so you can keep them, but also make your budget reasonable to your expenses and to the money that you have coming in. Because most nonprofit organizations work year to year on their budget. So while I was building out the compensation philosophy and the guide, it became very clear that we couldn't have one without the other. We needed to define just not how people were growing vertically and horizontally, but how we would match that on the financial side so it could feel equitable and transparent. The career pathing really was kind of already built in the roles that we had existing. So what we did was kind of break up what the organization would look like department wise. So from executive leadership down to the operations, down to the human resources and people, research and evaluation, and the data department. So once we broke it up by department and what each function was, it was much easier to figure out what roles would look like and what growth would look like from the intern level up to entry level roles, level 1, level 2, senior data, etc. And then trying to plug in where people were currently at, if their role or title was going to change in any way, and where they would grow. So giving them clear measures or ways for that path. And then if not, where they currently were at and where they would currently switch into if they were not in a like very defined role already based on their skills and competencies where they would fit best. So it was a lot of plug and play with figuring out what the core skills and competencies needed to work at an organization were. So starting off setting a baseline and then going from there, what skills and competencies were needed by department if it wasn't, transferable across more than one role. From there, of course, I was doing a lot of market research, and as if you know, Miami is very expensive right now, cost of living, and it's very competitive with COVID and a lot of people moving to Miami. It shifted our market a lot, job market and cost of living. So we had to assess really, are we paying our people fairly? How are we going to stay competitive? What does it really cost to live sustainably in Miami? And how can we maintain our people, putting all those factors together? So going backing that into our operational budget and our company budget, I was just kind of seeing what was feasible, what was realistic, and then if we could not budge on specific items like salary, where else in our compensation package we could really make changes to give our people what they wanted. So we also did a lot of surveys to ask our team. Like, this wasn't just the leadership team. We really valued the input of our team members, asking them across everything in our compensation package, whether we currently existingly offered it or we're looking to make changes and additions, what would they want and what would they prioritize? Because, when you ask for something or when you ask, hey, if we can give you something, people tend to ask for the sun, the moon, the stars, which in their right, they should. But of course, to every organization's budget, you have to see what's feasible and what makes sense and what's right for your organization. So we did that. We addressed everything that what made sense for us, prioritized what the team wanted, and then finalized everything based on that. We got a lot of feedback in the in-betweens because we presented a lot of different documents, like if you were in a specific department, how you were contributing at the individual level for the function, if you were a department head, how you were gonna be a functional leader, if you were in the executive leadership team, how you were meant to be contributing at that level. So it was really a lot of give and take and a lot of feedback in order for us to finalize this and feel like it was in a good place that the team understood it, was able to engage with it, and then knew what was coming next for them in their individual role.
Do you wish you could connect with other nonprofit learning and development leaders? I know what it feels like to want someone to bounce ideas off of and to learn from, someone who really understands you and your work. Imagine if you could have a simple way to meet people in the field, ask questions, and share information. That's why I created Nonprofit Learning and Development Collective, where nonprofit L&D, talent management, and DEI leaders can connect with each other quickly and easily in a virtual space. When you join this community, you will walk away with a new, diverse, and powerful network and a sounding board for your staff development needs. So if you're ready to exchange ideas and collaborate with your peers, come join the Nonprofit L&D Collective.
A lot of organizations might say, well, we're small, we're kind of a flat organization. We can't really offer career paths because there's nowhere really for people to go. Or we're in the nonprofit sector, we're a nonprofit, like we can't really afford to change compensation. And that really wasn't the approach that you took. So tell me a little about how you are defining career paths and kind of what your thought process was there.
So when we defined career paths, we didn't just think of vertical growth. We also thought of horizontal growth. So if you were becoming like a subject matter expert, if you were growing in responsibility, or tasks or projects. For us, it's very specific. I know every organization doesn't operate the same way, but for us specifically, it was based on projects that we were taking on. So if a new project came on, were you a support versus a lead? What level of responsibility? What size of project? So there was a lot of ways to grow in that way, while hopefully also growing in the financial side, but not necessarily growing vertically. Because at the end of the day, I mean, I did say we are a team of 10. Not everyone here can be a C-suite, not everyone here can be a director, and maybe that is what everybody here wants, and we can try and make space for that, or ways that they can grow in those skills, but maybe also not everybody wants that. So we had to find ways to approach growth, even if it didn't mean vertical growth. So we mapped out, like I said, the skills and competencies needed across the roles and then see where people were at. So we did kind of like a baseline also at the employee level. What skills does this person have? What skills do they want to grow in? We try to make our work plans very, very customized and very personal. So this is something we do on a yearly basis. I, with the leadership team and the department heads, map out a work plan that I have templated where everyone's skills and competencies are laid out, how their role and their time is split. So against project-based work, against professional development, strategic planning, interfaces with other departments like the HR and people, team and culture. We try to account for that during the workday and not outside of the workday. So a lot of these things, how your role is split, including business development, if you're going to be out in the community trying to bring in work, also needed to be addressed because not everybody can do everything, especially if you're trying to split yourself in so many ways. there's no way that you could possibly do it all well. So it was really figuring out what people's interests were and where they wanted to grow or where their strengths currently lied so that we can then focus them in that direction for growth in those ways. So when we looked at all the skills and competencies, let's say somebody was very much on the leadership track and they wanted to be a department head. Okay, let's talk about what functional leadership means and what skills you have to build, which ones you currently already have and are probably honing, which ones you are lacking or a little bit lesser on and we want you to focus on. So then we can work on an individualized work plan at that level. So, yes, as an organization, we have something, but also at the individual level, which I think is important. And I know that when you think about bigger organizations, bigger groups, it's kind of harder to achieve because you're thinking, okay, if I have a 500-person company, how am I doing 500 work plans? But it's really at the collaborative level when you're working not just the executive leadership team, but your department heads and the people within that department that know the work best and know the team best that can potentially do this work together.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration here for sure. Now, as you're describing your process, I'm hearing competencies, I'm hearing obviously the career paths themselves, I'm hearing compensation, the work plan, which I think includes some sort of like learning component, if I'm understanding that correctly. So you're already thinking about how you're looking at it more like comprehensively, right? So, how are you using this work to feed into or align with other talent initiatives? Are there other things other than the ones that I mentioned that you are aligning with? What does that kind of piece of it look like?
Yeah, so when I say professional development, I speak about learning and development as a whole at the organization. So we, like I said, when we do the work plans on an annual basis, we also do a learning and development plan for the year. And that's at the broader upper level for the org, which is what everyone is working across the org, whether it's collaboratively, individually, or as a team. And then how that feeds into like our strategic plan, our business initiatives, our business goals, and what we're trying to achieve as an organization. Because, yes, as an organization, we care about you as the individual and want you to grow for the benefit of the company, for the benefit of yourself and your future career. But we're also trying to run a business and, of course, meet our business initiatives. So we try to blend those two together where the L&D plan feeds into our current strategic plan. When we talk about learning and development or professional development, the collaborative efforts can sometimes look like us in-house running trainings or workshops, post huddles, seminars, etc. That the leadership team or somebody who's a specific subject matter expert in that area can train the rest of the team on. A good example of that is specifically to our organization, we talk about qualitative methods. So we had one of our seniors who is very much experienced in the qualitative methods run a seminar with our team, with our senior from the data side to do quantitative methods and do a mixed method approach. So we had both perspectives at the table, training the team on the work that we do day to day. And it was establishing a baseline for everyone on the team, even myself on the HR side, because it's important if we're working at an organization to know or understand what it is the work that we're doing, even if we're not directly contributing to it on a day to day. So that fed into the L&D plan, which fed into our strategic plan on building the capacity of our team, which would also build the capacity of our clients. So it's trying to see, like, the through line through everything, but also trying to make the time and the space for a specific individual separate from these seminars and trainings and workshops that we do as a team to also dedicate time to do their own efforts. So, for example, members of our data team are interested in this year learning specific data skills separate from the programs that we use to stay competitive in the market and programs that would probably start trending in the next year or two. So they're going to like a data camp as a department to learn these skills. They're not skills that we currently use in house, but we might in the future. So this is a way to stay ahead of the curve with the market.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense and can definitely see that strategic through line as you're talking. What impacts have you seen from doing this work in this way?
Not only retention, I feel like on the HR and people side, retention is probably the biggest one because our team loves the benefits and the things that we offer as an organization. Not a lot of organizations from the feedback we have gotten from their previous experiences invest in them at this level. And just our philosophy overall is yes, it is an investment because it's in the word. It is costly sometimes and it is time, but in the end, it returns to you. The return on the investment is like tenfold. You have people who are really engaged. You have people who want to continue to grow. And as if they're growing individually, they're also growing for your organization. Whatever they learn, they're bringing it back here as long as they're here. And I feel like I've mentioned this before. I feel like a big mistake that a lot of organizations make is not wanting to do that investment because they're thinking from the employer side, why do I want to build this person up to essentially set them up for their next employer? And the reality of it is that you might serve as a stepping stone for that person, and that's okay. You just have to, as a mentor, as a leader, as a stepping stone, serve that purpose or benefit from it while you have it. Because at the end of the day, that employer is still going to contribute to your organization in many different ways. And then have them speak well about you as an employer, bring you clients, bring you future employees, and just have a good legacy in your name for your organization in the future if that person weren't to stay there. Now, that's not to say that everybody treats you as a stepping stone or everybody has that approach. There are many employees, like, I mean, for the most part, everyone who's on our team has been on our team for quite some time. We don't have high turnover. Again, our retention is very high, but that's because of the way you treat people and the value that you assert on them and the value you see in them. So you might have employees who are in with you for the long haul, who want to be a part of your organization for many, many years, or even to consider the organization that they retire at, and that's also great. But you never know that, right? We don't have a crystal ball. We can't tell. So I feel like it's a worthy investment and it's a worthwhile investment because you're gonna see it whether it's through future connections, through the time that you have them, or even through word of mouth, that the impact and the time you dedicated and investment you made in them was going to benefit your organization in many ways.
Yeah, that is a soapbox I will get on as well if you let me. So I think, there's so much value in investing in your people. You're often your biggest expense, your biggest line item in your budget. And so why would you not invest in them and make the most use of it? And to your point, being afraid that they'll leave, it's really kind of a useless fear to have because they could stay and be unproductive or create inefficiencies or reduce morale across the organization, all of which you're going to feel in the bottom line. And so, yeah, if they leave feeling good about the organization, and that's a good thing for everyone. So, I mentioned in my intro that career paths are a thing that can feel pretty complex to people. It feels like it just feels abstract. People don't really know where to start or what it would look like or if they can really do it within our organization. And I often get asked about career paths, like how do you structure them? How do you clearly communicate them? Especially like you have competencies, but just because you show a skill set doesn't mean you get promoted. And so there's all of this question mark, I feel like, around career paths. What is your advice to nonprofits who are thinking about career paths and just starting to explore this work?
Well, like you said, for a lot of organizations, it might seem overwhelming, especially because of the investment piece. I feel like the most important part is one being open to even trying it because your employees are going to see the moment you are making a shift to try and invest in them or try to make things more transparent for them. Transparency is key, especially at nonprofits, because everybody who works at a nonprofit knows you're working off budgets, you're working off deadlines, and odds are that that can happen at any given there can be shifts in that at any given moment, so you kinda have to roll with the tides and make things work. So, my biggest thing is to start simple, make it practical, make it approachable. It doesn't need to be perfect. You can continue to revisit it, get feedback from your team. That's probably the most important part. Involve your team so that they can tell you what it is that they're looking for, where there is lack of clarity, what they desire as the next phase, because if you design something without your team in mind or without their feedback in mind, you're designing it based on an assumption or based off of what you think they're going to want, and then it's not really designed for them. So then you might give it to them and you say, "Okay, check the box. I did it. It's done. You have a career path, but it might not be clear. It might not be what they were looking for." And then you're back to square one. So really start simple. Don't make it overly complex for it's not doesn't have to be overly complex to be valuable. And then first define I feel like the number one component here is defining what success looks like for your organization. What skills, what behaviors, what competencies, what becomes your foundation. So everyone at the organization when you were hiring, whether you did it consciously or subconsciously, you were looking for certain skills, right? You were looking for a certain culture fit. What were those things? Revisit that, kind of reflect what everyone has across the board, and that sets your foundation up for you, and then build it from there. You also, separate from the what I was mentioning about getting your feedback from your team, don't treat it as a standalone initiative on the leadership side. Get your department heads, get managers involved. Everyone who's managing or overseeing people should have some sort of input or eyes on what it is that you're doing so that it connects to performance, development, compensation, your finance team, your HR team, etc., just so that it can continue evolving and so that it's an all hands on deck approach so it seems more doable.
Yeah, and from a change management perspective, change leadership perspective, you're getting their buy-in along the way, which is great. Well, Melanie, I so appreciate you joining me today and sharing what you have done at BSRI, the career paths that you've created, walking through what that looks like and how you've done that has just been so helpful to hear. So thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
Start simple, get feedback from your employees, define what success looks like, and go for it. Wise words from Melanie. I hope that you will start to think about career pathing in your organization if you haven't already, and think about how you can contribute, how you could lead, how you can be a part of these efforts. And as you have questions, I want to make sure that you have a sounding board, a place where you can troubleshoot the challenges that you're facing. And so if you are a nonprofit employee with training or talent development responsibilities, come join the Nonprofit Learning and Development Collective for our next networking event. These events are a perfect way to meet other nonprofit training professionals, ask questions, exchange ideas, and leave ready to take on new challenges like career pathing at work. I'll see you next time on Learning for Good.
Hey friend, was this episode helpful for you? Did you like what you heard? Do you want more content like this? Here are 3 things you can do. Hit subscribe, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast app of choice, share this episode with a colleague. This means so much to me personally. I read every review, but it also helps me learn what content you like most so I can create more of what you want. All right, turn that Teams or Slack chat back on when you're ready, and I'll see you next time on Learning for Good.